All right, let's jump right into a massive shift happening in the B2B space right now. Today, we're looking at a platform called PickChance. What they're doing is taking the MENA industrial sector, specifically starting out in Egypt, and literally rewiring it. They're transforming an ecosystem that's built on random, unstructured chaos into a highly calculated, structured system. If you're fascinated by how legacy industries finally get dragged into the digital age, you're going to absolutely love this explainer. So let's kick things off with a pretty wild question. How on earth does a $195 billion market just run randomly? It sounds completely made up, right? You'd assume any industry moving that kind of money would run like a finely tuned machine. But the reality? It relies on fragmented relationships, a chaotic web of phone calls, and basically zero standardized processes. It's just this massive, completely untamed landscape. And to really wrap your head around the scale of that landscape, we are talking about an ecosystem with over 95,000 factories operating in Egypt alone. Just let that sink in for a second. 95,000 separate entities. They're making things, sourcing materials, trying to find buyers, but they're basically operating in the dark. They are totally trapped in their own isolated little bubbles. And that perfectly highlights the stakes here. A staggering $195 billion market. But the craziest part? The problem isn't a lack of supply or demand. The money is there, the materials are there. Honestly, it's like a multi-billion-dollar yard sale where nothing has a price tag and there's no map to find anything. The connective tissue between the factories and the merchants is just completely broken. And, at the end of the day, that chaos trickles down and totally warps the prices of everyday goods. So to really unpack how this platform fixes all that, we're going to hit 6 key areas in this explainer. We'll start with the current market chaos, clearly define what PickChance is, look at the 3 core problems it solves, walk through how the system actually works, touch on their profit model, and then wrap up with the real market difference. All right, Section 1, the current industrial market chaos and why this ecosystem is so fundamentally broken. Basically, we're looking at a severely choked economy. Right now, merchants are flying completely blind. They can't easily find the factories that actually match what they need. And on the flip side, the factories are isolated. They literally can't sell outside of their immediate geographic circles. Because of all this disconnect, market prices are a total guessing game. There's no baseline. So you end up with massive amounts of time, energy, and serious money just completely wasted every single day. Which brings us to this absolutely crucial concept, market truth. I love this idea. Market truth is having a single, completely reliable source of organized data, the actual reality of the market. And right now, in the B2B industrial space, it simply does not exist. Everyone's guessing. Everyone's operating on fragments of information. So, moving to Section 2, what is PickChance really? How does this platform step in and actually fix things? Well, to really get what PickChance is, you kind of have to start with what it isn't. It's not just a digital sales platform. It's not a glorified yellow pages for factories. And it's definitely not a traditional broker. What it is a rigid B2B industrial operating system. And honestly, rigid is the magic word here. It forces order. It literally turns physical factories into structured data, physical products into trackable digital assets, and turns those old school handshake deals into verifiable, calculated operations. Let's look at Section 3 and see how this system actually solves the market's 3 core problems: data, decision, and execution. So the platform maps its tech directly to where the market fails. First up, the data problem. Currently, there are 0 unified definitions. PickChance fixes this with mandatory, highly structured data entry. You can't just type whatever you want, it goes through a strict quality review. Second, the decision problem. No more random buying. They bring in advanced search, structured RFQs, and smart factory nominations. And third, execution. Those undocumented deals that cause endless arguments, gone. The system mandates deal documentation, tracks execution step by step, and literally links the actual money to the physical delivery. Okay, let's jump into Section 4. How does the system work? What's the actual operational flow look like on the ground? It boils down to a super rigid 5-step workflow that forces every single interaction to be clean. Step 1, market registration. You have to enter clean data before you can even get in the door. Step 2, search and order, which finally allows for real apples-to-apples comparisons. Step 3 is deal documentation. Think digital signatures and crystal clear agreements. Step 4 is financial control, holding funds until delivery.
And step 5, because everyone has to follow these rules, the system naturally captures that market truth we talked about, automatically building the most accurate industrial database in the region.
I actually want to pause on step 4 for a second because this is a game changer. They use a concept called financial control without possession. So PickChance doesn't act like a bank. They aren't holding the merchant's money in their own accounts. Instead, they act as this strict gatekeeper. The funds are only released based entirely on the successful, documented delivery of the goods. It completely wipes out the massive financial risk that usually terrifies people in B2B deals. If the factory doesn't deliver, the money doesn't move. It's so simple, but for this market, it's totally revolutionary. Of course, building and enforcing all this infrastructure isn't free. So let's look at Section 5, the profit model and control, and how this becomes a sustainable business. They're monetizing all this new order in 3 really smart ways. First off, they take a commission on every successful risk-free transaction. Makes sense. Second, monthly subscription fees for the heavy users living in the ecosystem. But the third one? This is the goldmine: premium analysis and marketing services. Because they force structured data, PickChance holds the only accurate, real-time analytics of what's actually moving in a $195 billion market. That level of data is literally invaluable. All right, let's wrap this up with Section 6, the real market difference. This is really about a fundamental philosophical shift. Here's where the massive paradigm shift happens. Most platforms out there are basically digital bulletin boards, right? They post products and just kind of cross their fingers. PickChance does the exact opposite. It enforces a strict, standardized way of doing business. If you want to play, you play by their rules. No cutting corners. And sure, that sounds restrictive at first, but the crazy paradox here is that this strictness is exactly what creates unprecedented trust. It speeds up transactions and leads to vastly better decisions for everyone. It's the ultimate proof that structure actually creates freedom. I want to leave you with this incredible quote straight from the source material. We are not competing with the market, we are organizing it. I mean, that just perfectly nails what true digital transformation is supposed to be. It's not about fighting the guys who are already there, it's about handing them the operating system they desperately needed but didn't even know existed. So, looking at the chaotic, fragmented industries still out there today, doesn't an approach like this completely rewrite the playbook on how B2B marketplaces should be built?